Hi, and welcome to the project overview of ChapterMorrow. Never-ending stories powered by AI, where the tale grows daily. So, this is my latest project, which I'm currently working on. I started this a few weeks ago, and it initially started from a very old idea, to be honest. And today I want to do a short, or maybe not so short, video about the idea behind the project, like a bit of history, the current state, the scope, what's built so far, and also what is used to build and how it's built, as well as what it can do and what you can do with it, and where it might be taken into the future. All right, let's maybe have a look back, maybe more or less exactly 11 years back. Tales of a Pirate, or rather called Tale of a Pirate -blog, tumblr.com, was actually my very first idea of putting out a kind of a pirate themed story together with a pixel art drawn by myself. So the pixel art was kind of a mix of gradient based backgrounds and retro style pixel art, as you can already see here in the first chapter for Tales of a Pirate. So that started quite a while ago, and I think it initially was around putting these some pixel art that I created to good use. And the rough idea was that I'm telling a story about a stranded pirate. I think it didn't even have a name back then, to be honest. And the first chapter, he just was floating in the water and trying to reach land. And yeah, this is kind of where this whole thing kicked off. I drew probably like a handful of these images. I only ever posted 2 Tumblr blog posts, to be honest. So it kind of quickly stopped again. But meanwhile, I actually reserved quite a few years ago talesofapirate.com. In temporary, I run like different kind of applications on the domain, even my multi-user dungeon that I built a while ago, which is currently stopped. Even that run a while on talesofapirate.com, so it's used as a domain for a server I run. But yeah, coming actually back to the story, it's something I always wanted to pick up again. I was looking for the art. I think I still have it, but I recently discovered as well the art again, and was actually thinking about, with all the latest tools that we have, with all the AI, generative AI capabilities that we now have, maybe it's actually worth to think about like an automation behind this project. And this is kind of where this whole idea again began for what is now become ChapterMorrow. So the idea was that I wanted to pick up Tales of a Pirate again by just leveraging large language models, generative AI, building automated scripts or written stories, as well as automated generation of images with pixel art. My last project, Mythic Folio, did also do very similar things by creating a lot of fancy tradable collectible cards, digital cards, just in your browser basically, right? And I was already leveraging, I think, DALL-E back then, and OpenAI APIs, Grok.com, and so on, and Llama. I tried out a lot of different ways to generate the cards and the content behind the cards. And this is now kind of a twist on the whole idea of generating again, this time stories instead of cards, and the respective art that comes with it. So when I initially picked it up again, I thought, hey, I do that like in a very simple setup, right? I could just whip together like a Docker container, put a small, script, either Python or Go, in it, and just hard code it to create this pirate themed story, which I wanted to continue and which I wanted to run on talesofapirate.com. And when I actually started then building the project, which of course I also highly leveraged, and I will come to that later again, AI-driven tools like I'm currently using a lot Cursor, OpenAI Codex, actually quite nice, to be honest. And I also used a bit Gemini CLI, to be honest, also not bad. I heard a lot of good things about Cloud Sonnet AI, which I haven't used yet, aside from the action model. So coming back to the story and the idea here. So with all the new tools at hand, and these are only a few, right, that I now currently tried out, used, I tried a few more. Some of them are actually region restricted, like for example, the Google Gemini 2.5 image generation is currently not available in Europe. Image Gen 3 actually is available. So I tried that as well, and you can actually configure that on an account level now as well in ChapterMorrow, but more to that later. So coming from the Spark kind of to revisit and revitalize Tales of a Pirate, I actually started building. And initially that was really like a small thing, right? A small application. I just wanted to put some information in a config file, like the styles for the images, the styles for the text, maybe a bit of a like information around the world that the pirate theme thing is set in. And from there it kind of started, and from a very initial minimalistic approach, I pivoted quite fast, to be honest, to a more or less full-fledged application. And this is kind of what I now wanna tell, the story, how that actually came to be, and what I did here. So basically that was the idea from back then, 11 years ago, building this Tumblr blog with the pirate pixel art themed story about a pirate that shipwrecked in front of an uncharted island. Coming now back to the idea of kind of picking up again Tales of a Pirate 2.0 kind of style, actually moving from Tales of a Pirate now to ChapterMorrow. So the idea is, okay, let's build this pirate block automated using LLMs, right? This is rather easy and should be easily doable. Just put the story in kind of a configuration per container. If I actually want to run a different story, I just boot up another Docker container, change the configuration, and off you go. And probably, to be honest, that would also be a quite simplistic and nice approach, and could have worked as well. But I was also a bit struggling with, I just have this stuff in the config files, and maybe I want to modify it, maybe I want to have it more flexible, and then I need to move this in a database. And while I already started using a Go binary, like a small Go service that actually read the configuration, did the communication with the with OpenAI API, with LLMs in general, with Gemini. I then actually moved off and thought, hey, I should also really put a proper database in. Maybe I need a user object. Maybe I need that and that. And this is kind of how this slowly evolved into thoughts about, I could actually build this maybe as a service, right? So I just left off this Project Mythic Folio, which I recently actually got back working again because it was kind of out for several months because of some database issues. And now leaving that one alone again, actually to focus on ChapterMorrow, which currently is something that I'm super interested in just to build for myself, and maybe let's see how it actually takes. So how hard can it be, right? And by the way, I directly kicked this off as well because you might never know, I kicked it off as a kind of a SaaS solution directly with accounts having a free and pro level. The main issue here is that if I put this on the internet, right, and currently it's on the internet, so you can actually go check it out, give feedback, you can have a look at it, and I will demo it as well. You can just log in and get a free account, which has, of course, some quite tight limits regarding AI calls, for sure, because currently I'm paying that, and that's why a lot of features that are heavily making use of recurring LLM calls are now behind these pro accounts, and I'm still thinking about how I could actually run that in the future. I don't know, not really with the intention of getting rich, but rather not paying for everyone that uses the platform a lot of money. So let's see. I'm still eager to explore some of these options once I'm at a level where I think this application has value and is something maybe some people would like to use and pay without just plugging in the API keys, right? That would be another solution. But anyway, this is kind of how we actually now came from Tales of a Pirate to ChapterMorrow. So from this config file driven Docker container style deployment, I now actually moved off and I started building like a full-fledged solution. So I don't want to cover too much the tech stack here, but at least that you know what was used then to run this whole thing. It's very simple, to be honest. It's a single Golang service. Right now it's a JavaScript and Vue frontend. Well, there are multiple frontends. There's a reader application, there's a create application, and there's a small landing page, which I'm showing to you as well. The whole thing is hosted on Fly.io currently to run the service. The Postgres is actually coming from Supabase. I'm not using the, I forgot actually something on the slide, which is Auth0. Auth0 is actually used for user management, or not for user management, but for logins, for social logins. And I'm using Netlify to host the frontend applications. I'm also using Netlify to host like a function, a serverless function that actually helps me doing the Twitter card integration. So you can actually put nice links on Twitter, for example, on X, and they show up properly. I'm not sure if I can show that, but maybe I'll do that at a later point. And for image hosting, I'm using S3. And this whole thing, of course, is automated. And the idea is also that you actually get a newsletter of your story. And this is using AWS SES. And as already mentioned previously, the whole thing is around 95% vibe coded. I, of course, built a lot of Go in the past, and I'm more than capable of doing JavaScript myself as well. Maybe it's not the best in the world, but I can. But to be honest, what it enabled me is really moving fast, building a lot of stuff. I only have like a few hours each day, the evening, the night, and so on, to work on it, and maybe a bit on the weekend. This is kind of how I actually moved in just like 2 to 3 weeks to a quite nice application, which I can now already showcase, which is still early, so I'm not like officially announcing any kind of launch, just putting it out there because I want to talk briefly about the project. And I mentioned it before, I'm using Cursor. I use Cursor also for a lot of other projects already. I pretty like it. I'm not liking the new policy around the payment levels, account levels, and so on, which they changed. Let's see if there's any development in that regards in the future. OpenAI Codex is pretty nice, to be honest, and sometimes you can really just go on your mobile phone, hammer in some prompt for a new feature, and just let it build. And depending on what it does, you could even just either merge it or check it out later and run it locally. Gemini CLI is similar. Had also good results with it. It's a bit of a different shift, right? This whole CLI, I think in Cursor it's really still a bit nicer integrated, but let's see how these whole CLI tools actually evolve, because they are kind of vendor locked in. Gemini has one, maybe Grok from X gets one, or from XAI. Then there's from Claude, there's one, and Claude Code, and so on. So let's see. OpenAI also has one, right? So that's it so far for the tech stack. As already mentioned, I don't want to put too much emphasis on it. I might revisit and do another video on how to actually build it, how I'm actually building new features for it. Maybe I can show that live, or record it at least at a later point. Now, let's actually go back to ChapterMorrow. What is ChapterMorrow? So ChapterMorrow is really for anyone who wants to, with the help of AI, wants to tell a story, right? Maybe I have some good, well, not as good ideas as to write a book, but maybe I have something I ever wanted to have told to me or to someone else as a story. Maybe it's for your kids. You need a story, you put it in, and you let it auto-generate chapters, maybe day by day, maybe you do it as often as you'd like, or another cadence, right? This is the rough idea why I actually wanted to move that into a whole offering. And I thought, hey, maybe there are others out there that are looking for a similar tool. So it's really rather simple, and you will see that later in the demo. You can get started very easily and take it from there. And you can either let the AI do as much as you want, as much as possible, or you can intervene. You could, for example, if you don't like a specific image, you can recreate it and recreate it over and over again. or also modify manually texts for the chapters. And just as further expansions, I don't have it further on the slide, but there's a lot of things possible, right? With animated images, with video creation tools like Veo and Sora and so on. There are a lot of options. You could use tools to create background music. You can even do whole text-to-speech for your stories. And I actually tried it out using 11 Labs. And to be honest, they actually have a new beta 3 something where they have a pirate voice. And I of course had to create one chapter in this voice, and it's pretty amazing. It really takes its time reading the chapter, and it's not that small, right? It takes like 2 or 3 minutes to read the whole chapter if it's now read to you as kind of an audiobook, which is nice. So this is kind of the idea, and I will show way more details later on the actual application. So I already mentioned beforehand, there are multiple applications. So first of all, this is the Creator app. And I really had to refine that multiple times using AI. The initial UI looked horrible. And to be fair, the config UIs are still not really there. They're working, they're functional, but they're completely over the top from a design perspective right now, done by AI. So I have to take it down a notch. I think this is something I will streamline in the next days, really focusing on getting the bare bone experience of the application running, and then I might expand into some new features. So as you can already see, it has the site navigation with the chapter navigation. The chapters are visible here for Tales of a Pirate, and there's a lot of configuration stuff available. You can log out, you can see some debug information still, stuff like that. You can actually switch stories, so I have another story set up with my account as well. You can jump to the reader applications and you can create new stories. Feature-wise, of course, the main feature and the whole thing is anchored around AI creation. Generative AI creates your stories, creates your artwork and so on. So you define the initial vision, AI takes it from there, or you are in the driver's seat and AI assists you. So you can do that. So you can either completely automate the creation of a chapter, or you can, for example, give it a prompt in what direction the story should evolve. Then there's the whole topic of world building. Initially, before actually the first chapter is done or chapter is created, you can define a set of characters. You can define like the main characters of your story. You can give them a whole description and everything. You can set up a few locations should come in should be visited in your story. You can set up kind of artifacts, things that are either in a location or used by a character and so on. And the cool thing about this is actually once a chapter is created and published, it will automatically update your world information. So it will, if there has been a new character introduced, it will add it to characters. If there's a new location, it will add it to the locations and so on. And the whole thing, as I already mentioned previously, is really meant to be automated. You have an idea. Maybe you're lazy, maybe you don't have the time, maybe you actually want to see what the AI can do with your idea, right? And for that, you can actually turn on auto-publishing and auto-generation. So every time a new chapter is about to be published and there's no chapter ready, it will actually generate one first, then auto-publish it. Or you could, for example, just set up like an amount of draft chapters, and the auto-publishing will just take care that it's published during the setup cadence, right? And this is, of course, where the name comes from, ChapterMorrow, chapter tomorrow, basically, right? So every day a fresh chapter, the story evolves daily, right? It kind of grows every day, day by day. That's the idea. So you can manually publish, you can automatically publish. It's all possible. And last but not least, an idea that I also had just a few days ago, and I had to just use Codex and let this whole thing build out in I don't know, half an hour, which is pretty nice. So this is kind of a a feature that actually lets a community, your reader community, evolve the story. And if you activate this feature, then for each chapter, the LLMs are generating 2 to 3 options how the story can evolve, and the readers actually get the option to vote. I have another slide, so I will talk a bit about detail in that as well. Jumping to actually the reader application. I think aside from the reader, I initially this Docker project idea, right, was about the service that generates the story and then just publishes to, I don't know, something like a GitHub repo or any kind of static file hoster. So actually we're using something like Hugo or some other static site renderer or builder to render your story. That was the initial idea, and it's still not there, so I'm planning to do that, because I think if you really have a successful story, you might want to use a different hosting than what I have, because mine is still doing calls to the backend. Even if it's not much, it's just the image, the summary, not the summary, just the chapter really, and then optionally the options for community voting if it's active, and that's it. But still, maybe actually, especially for the ones without the community involvement, you might want just to publish static HTML. It is blazingly fast, it's easily cacheable, and it's something that can be served on the edge without really having a central server. All right. Getting back to this whole thing, community thing. So this is really taking a note from Twitch Plays. I know it's a bad comparison. This is not Twitch. This is also not Pokemon being played. But the idea is, you get it right. It's a group of people that are kind of enthusiastic about the story, getting together and together actually trying to grow the story, trying to evolve it. So the same way how actually Twitch Plays interacted with Pokemon on the Game Boy, and then try to steer using community-driven, right? The kind of a crowdsourced WASD walking and so on. And this is roughly the idea. That, as I said as well, there will be then a few options generated, and you can see here already I have one story set up that actually makes use of that. The Tales of a Pirate is not using it right now, but a different one. And here you actually get then a few options, and the idea is, which is still not there, that you see, I don't know, the next chapter is planned to be published in 1 day or 2 days or in a week, right? So you actually get to see also a countdown which says, hey, you get time in the next, I don't know, 24 hours, next 48 hours to actually vote on where we should take the story. And as you can see here in the bottom screenshot, this is of course me voting. So we already have 3 votes in. And then the idea is that actually option 3 will be picked as kind of a part of the prompt to generate the next chapter. Normally it would just use the history and then come up with a new chapter. And most of the time, of course, it would pick it off where it already kind of ended in the last chapter. And here, basically, it gets another direction. It's the same thing as you could do as well if you manually create a new chapter. All right. And that's it for the slides for now. And I'm briefly making a cut and switching over to the demo. And we're back with the demo. And so here's the landing page, ChapterMorrow.com. Never-ending stories powered by AI. Actually, it's pretty nice. If you refresh a bit, you can see there are some nice slogans like a new chapter with every sunrise, daily prose, endless possibilities, the narrative never sleeps, your story unfolding day by day, or where the tale grows daily. So that's a rough idea with this book and the plant here in the background and these nice creatures, the AI creatures helping you write the story. The landing page is still very much a work in progress with a demo video on it. Probably Hello Inception. I will put this project overview here as well, and there's some screenshots. The idea is actually that I'm also showing some top stories and most interactive stories, but of course that's still in the Yeah, early days, so it's not much there yet, to be honest. Heading over first to the reader application before we look at the create application. So just seeing it actually still uses the Vue.js fav icon, so I have to change that. And I'm actually not at the landing page. So this is the landing page, and I still need to work on it a bit, or maybe integrate it with the actual landing page and then just have the public stories as kind of a part of a sub navigation from the main landing page. So what you can see here is that here are all stories that are public, or that at least have one published chapter. Tales of a Pirate is the first one. You can already see it has 8 chapters. Then I created another one about a young knight called Christopher and the fox that he met in the wood. Then another one, which initially should have called Hello World, suddenly became Hell World, and yeah, that's how this story came to be. And then we have another one which is called Skyborn, the Awakening of Etherreach, which is actually the one that has community voting active, and this is around some anime creatures having pocket monsters and so on, right? I guess you probably know that kind of story. And maybe just scrolling down briefly, you can already see here, your voice has been heard. So I already voted on this story. Should probably also improve that so I can see what I voted. Maybe also see or render if the next chapter is already there. Then maybe this should disappear or look something or render differently, right? So it's still very early. There's still a lot of things to do. So here, actually looking at the second chapter, and I actually still have to read that one and see how well it matches with the community votes from the first one. But you can already see continuing. Basically, Kyle and Sephira are still there. And then we have a new community vote, which I haven't voted yet. So you can see here, I can shape the story's next chapter by voting one of these votes. And maybe without reading, let's say we want to have a standoff with the Cloud Veil Watch. So I'm voting this one. Thank you for participating. Your choice helps shape this story's journey. That's the idea, right? So this is kind of the community-driven story creation. Let's maybe go back, and the idea is also right now it still creates a lot of stories that have a very similar chapter length, and the plan is actually for the chapter to be maybe configurable. Right now it's not. So let's head over to Tales of a Pirate, and you can already see there's plenty of chapters already available, and the next one is already written but not published yet. It will be published tomorrow morning around 8 a.m. So looking at the table of contents, you can also switch the list view or a grid view, and it stores this per story on your browser. So if you, for example, enjoy viewing the pictures, that's nice. Or if it's like a lot of chapters, maybe you want to quickly find the last one, you can render it like that. So the reader is still very bare-bone. There are some ideas I have that could improve that one. It's really mainly used to read your read your chapters. And actually, what I mentioned earlier, right? I'm using Amazon SES, AWS SES to send emails. So basically, every day, if you subscribe here at the bottom to this newsletter, every day you will get a new chapter to your inbox, and that's of course totally optional. All right, heading over to the actual application, to the create application, and as already mentioned, this is really done by AI as well. This is using Cursor and Codex and so on. So I didn't do much, especially around the designs. I try to get it as consistent as possible with the design system I'm using, but there are some signs in places where it's not really working. And here we are. This is the dashboard for Tales of a Pirate. You can already see a dashboard with the publishing cadence, with the subscribers, how many chapters I have in total, and published chapters. I have some world building information and publishing status, and I can already see the next chapter and see the latest chapter that's published. And maybe let's take you briefly through the actual configuration. I will probably prepare a very short demo video again, how we actually set up a new story until a first chapter is published, and then you can read it. So, but that will be another video. So in this case, Tales of a Pirate has a URL slug, so it's readily available here on read ChapterMorrow.com, Tales of a Pirate. So it's an easily recognizable URL. You can already see here this drop cap characters. This is optional. So if you like these as a start of your chapter, you can activate them here in the basic settings, and you can also enable interactive mode, which maybe I need to move this out as well if you have more configuration options later on. And then there's a lot of stuff that AI generated additionally. Actually, there's a delete story function as well. And there's also the possibility, for example, to jump to the next things. Mainly the narrative is of course the main one, and this is, as already mentioned, how the story is kicking off. So the story premise is how it's actually started. So in this story, of course, starts with Captain Rumbeard drifting in the water near the shore of an uncharted island. And in the main story arc, actually, there is the description about Captain Rumbeard, who will discover Polly the Macon parrot on the beach after shipwrecking and after stranding on this island. And after creating a shelter and so on, seeking for some protection, he will start venturing off to adventures. And this is the story, and it sets off right after Rumbeard shipwrecked. The main characters here are Captain Rumbeard and Polly the parrot. And now comes to the world. The UI really is not yet nice. I have to fix that one, but it is working at least. So you can already see we have the characters, locations, and artifacts. Here, of course, this is Captain Rumbeard and Polly the parrot. I actually write Polly the parrot because a lot of times the AI might get this wrong and interpret Polly as a woman or a girl. So I'm writing parrot just to see that it's consistently also depicting it as a parrot, and the image generation also works better if I describe it as a parrot. I might later on also actually use something like retrieval augmented generation. It's currently not built in. This is of course one of the big things I might want to add later, especially if the amount of data gets bigger and bigger. That is part of the story. As you can, for example, see, these 12 locations are not added by myself. I think I added initially the beach. So the beach is something I described, and everything else, you can see it's a bit shorter description. Everything else is actually written by AI because it analyzed a chapter after creation and then added it to the world information. Similar goes with the artifacts. I think I haven't added one of these artifacts actually, so they're all created by AI and put it kind of into the canon of this story, right? Text style is actually pretty bad right now. I really need to fix the UI. So this is narrated mainly from Rumbeard's perspective, sometimes also from a third person. The tone is actually pirate speak, so if Rumbeard speaks, sounds like a pirate. And it's a pirate adventure, and it's funny, and it's treasure hunting, lone island survivor, and so on. The image style is actually trying to become similar to Monkey Island 1 or 2, which I like a lot. And I think it's certainly nice if that would resemble that art, even if it's not matching the original art I used for the Tumblr blog. And then publishing actually has kind of these really nice features around automatically publishing due to cadence. So you can either set it daily, then it's in the morning. Probably need to adjust the time zone because it's currently UTC and it's pretty late. So it's rather like 8 AM and it should be a bit earlier. You can do it every other day. You can do it weekly, and you can then define a weekday, for example. Or you can have a custom cadence with a cron shop like syntax, which is working nicely, and it's UTC time. And here are the two options I mentioned earlier. You can either automatically publish new chapters. If they are none, then we have a second flag called automatically generate new chapters when none are available to publish. So if they are non-published, or if there are no draft ones and we want to publish one and this flag is off, there will be none generated. But if this flag is on, we will just use basically the normal AI generated chapter and then directly publish that. So coming actually to kind of the gem or the highlight of the application. the chapter overview and the chapter management, which has a lot of functionality. And the thing is, so the idea, so there are a lot of AI functions, or not a lot, but some AI functions available here as well. So you can either create a new chapter. If I click that one, it will directly create a new one. And I might be able, with another account, so I might be able to show that as well. Or I could use one with a prompt. If I have this interactive mode, I probably need to deactivate it still, because then actually it should be community driven and not created by the creator. So I'm still thinking about that, if it's also possible maybe that you get the community vote and then you can still manually create your chapter. I think that was certainly valid. But if the vote still runs and then you create a chapter, and then, so it's a bit tricky. I'm still not finalizing that one. As you can see here, there are 9 chapters and the latest chapter is still in draft. So here are some of the pro features. So you can regenerate a chapter, you can recreate a summary, which is just for you and I think the reader application. You can recreate the image, you can create a thumbnail. This was mainly initially when I did not create thumbnails for the story and for the sharing on Twitter cards. And I had to recreate it for some older stories. Right now you barely need this one, because it really just takes the current image and creates something and uploads it. You can edit manually, like if you hit here, you can actually modify the story. I think this still is a bit of a very basic experience. It needs to improve, but it's all there. You can save, you can cancel, and you can also just let the AI recreate the whole story. Let's maybe try out the image generation. As you can already see here, it will start creating a new image with the same prompt, more or less, that has been used before. And from there you can then actually see and say, hey, I want maybe to use this other image. And to be honest, it looks pretty nice. So I'm not really... it's pretty here. He actually has the dynamite, which is part of the story, and the water, which is used to extinguish kind of the demon lord. I really like both, to be honest. Especially here, Rumbeard looks also pretty cool. But I will go and keep the old one. So this is just something you can do. You can create a new one and then decide to overwrite it or keep the old. Let's keep it for now, and as said, this is kind of the whole thing that you can coolly do in the creator application. There is also, and maybe that's a bit much now to show, but there is also a mobile version. It should be more or less adapted. It's not perfect, to be honest, so I still need to improve that one, especially the headers, but the rest is mainly usable. And yeah, so it's something you can also check out if you're on a mobile phone. Similar goes with the reader application. I think that actually is even better. So that works pretty well, the reader application, on mobile as well as on desktop. Now, let's kind of conclude the demo for now. Maybe just one thing to show you as well, briefly switching over to the Skybound story, right? As you can see here, this is has a publishing cadence of every other day, so it has 2 days of voting. There are already 16 characters introduced, 8 locations, so that's, to be honest, rather crazy. Okay, but I did set up a lot of characters beforehand, so that's true. I actually used ChatGPT to help me with writing the stories, and I wrote some of these locations and characters myself initially, so they're not added by AI. You can already see here the 2 chapters, and from here you can also see the current votes. So we just voted for the option 1, right? A, and we can see still live voting is still going on. And yeah, but that's really still very fresh, so it's something I have to polish more. And yeah, with that, let me conclude the presentation for today. I might do some subsequent videos on the project, maybe hopefully shorter ones, just showcasing particular application areas of the application of the whole project. So this was so far the demo time. And of course, if you have any feedback, if you have any ideas how to improve it, what you think could be cool, maybe you want to use it, maybe you want to have a pro account to try it out, right? Stuff like that, let me know. Happy to hear feedback on that one. And yeah, hope you're interested, and hope this was not too lengthy of a video, and maybe you tune in the future, maybe during a live stream or another YouTube video, to see an update on the project. And till then, yeah, give it a go on ChapterMorrow.com. See ya.